Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to get into post-NESARA issues, but we're going to talk about professional and personal learning conferences with Trina Welch. Coming right up.
Hi.
So what's going on with you? How's it going for you?
It's going great. We're trying to not need to build an ark over here in Arkansas.
Yeah, it's been really rainy too here. I mean, we haven't turned on sprinklers at all. So,
Right?
I mean, it's like, wow, that's a long time for us not to do that.
We're
So,
having to backwash the pool to keep it from overflowing.
God, that's just crazy now.
And if my audience happens to chime in, they all know that I have a dog that has PTSD, and thunder is his weak link. And this week, it's all come in the middle of the night.
Yep.
So I have not had a solid night's sleep all week, and it is telling on me.
It is difficult when those kind of things go on, and I get it. Yeah, I get it with that. So today, what we're going to do, and this kind of came on like early this week, I think it was, and Trina was the first one I was thinking about because she has just got a passion for this kind of stuff. Now, I want you guys all to think past the EBS, and NESARA is rolling out here. Okay, we're trying to get you to think in the future through the vision. I know you're in the haze right now, but let's move past that, because when you think on the future, that's how God speaks. The words, I mean, the points of faith, when you say, for instance, let's say you're looking for a husband and you say, I'm looking for a husband, I believe that husband's out there, and you start speaking faith on that kind of stuff, it changes it. Or if you say, I'm just always sick, I'm never going to be healthy again, I mean, guess what? You just knocked yourself down in that way. And so what we're trying to do in this area here is bring you forward and think you through some of these kinds of cool things with that too. So that's where we kind of get that point here. But you know what? Trina has a lot of cool areas. We actually have been on her show. I don't know how many times, 4 or 5, something like that.
At least. At
Right.
least.
And so, when she and I talk all the time. I mean, like, she's helped me through a million little things here and real good friends. But, I think she's been pushing on this kind of thing because she knows it's a passion of mine, and it's a passion of hers too. And so I think you're seeing truthers trying to find those alliances in that with that too. So what are some of your backgrounds in conferences? When you think about the conferences, what's your background in that?
Well, before I dive in there, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here and let me share some of this with your audience, because I believe that the last 3 or 4 years we continually hear it's up to us. That, they're giving the power back to the people and it's up to us. And I think we have all looked at it from the governmental and the maybe even the military side, using the military type of changing everything to get the EBS to push this through. And I really believe we probably, and I'm saying we, that's all four of them fingers, pointing back at me, is if we had maybe taken the stance of, if this RV and NESARA and GESARA and all this stuff doesn't flip real quick, what could we do to start pressing forward with the picture of America that we want now?
Right.
Because we've seen all the negative, we've seen all the ugly, we've seen all the preservatives, we've seen all the poison. What could we have done? And we have not pressed on that gas pedal like that as much as I wish. If I could go back and do it different, I'd do it different, Scott. And that is where you and I ended up in this conversation earlier in the week. Was some of my best ideas are usually around my swimming pool. That is my place of peace. And that is where me and God have a little mini convention every time I hit my float or my lounger. and I can hear the birds. I can watch the clouds. I can see whether there's chemtrails or clouds. And that gets me on a whole nother subject when I'm out there talking to him, because
Yeah.
I'm really honest with him. But this weekend, this past weekend, I was with my husband and daughter, and they're a big part of my humanitarian and where I want to move towards this post system. I said, if something happened and this pushed off a little longer, what can we do to make this start flowing the right direction where God sees us moving and pulling the people together to make some of this happen? And so that's what I know your heart for your humanitarian, from what I've heard you say, was we're going to have to retrain the world.
Right.
And that's so true. And where you and I've discussed on my background is I have a background in direct sales and multi-level marketing since I was 19 years old, and that's been a few years ago. But the Lord saw fit to place me in so many different arenas with that, because we've even taken my son to San Diego to Comic-Con twice. So if you want to go to the mother of all conventions or
Right.
expo slash trade shows, it actually is the biggest blend of all of that that I have ever seen, because they do main stage convention, they do panels, they do the expo, and it's the entire downtown city of San Diego. They
Right.
have breakout stuff in hotels over here or hotels over there, and it is it is overwhelming. Even to someone that's done a lot of conventions and conferences, it is very overwhelming. It is a process that if you want to go, you now have to get into a pool to see if you even get your number drawn to even try to get in line to buy a badge.
Right.
And
Because it's worldwide and everyone's talking about it, and each one of those
yes,
things are billion-dollar industry points that are coming.
yes. And Comic-Con does bring people. That was the interesting thing. It's kind of like if you've ever been to Disney. Is it Disney World that's in Florida?
Yeah. Florida. Yeah. Disney World's in Florida.
World. Okay. When you get there, you can just walk down Main Street Disney. Now, I don't promote that to anyone, but it was one of the only places I'd ever been a long time ago that you have every nationality around you almost.
Mhm. Yep.
Or you can get in the old city in Jerusalem and be in the same situation. You hear every language blending around you, and Comic-Con was like that. It brought people from the whole world. So, I have a background in doing small events, 2 to 300 people, all the way up to that. I used to do weekly meetings that I had anywhere from, 10 sometimes up to 150. So I have a blend of the trade show side because of having a candle business and being a small business owner. And I never knew he was preparing me for what I was going to do for my life.
Absolutely. And I think that blend that we're seeing here, I mean, God doesn't like do things on accident. I mean, he's setting you up in what way you're supposed to go. And
Mhm.
and so you're seeing Trina be one of those kinds of people who's going, you know what? I'm all about education. I'm all about promoting that person from one step to the next. And for a lot of people who don't understand these kinds of things, when they look at these things, they see them almost as one type of thing. And I want to kind of bring this up here, when I'm gonna show you here on the screen, and just kind of see your reaction, because we haven't really gone through this, but there are things like trade shows, there are conferences, and then there are the conventions with that too. And so, for instance, a convention is kind of what I'm talking about. Conventions, they're more on a membership kind of basis, or they're really and they're much more formal in that kind of way. It's a professional kind of circumstance. There's a lot of cool things. The attendance, is a little bit of an issue that out there. The planning for conferences, you've got a smaller budget. So, and it can be a more smaller area. I'm real used to these kinds of things. But whereas, conferences are a little different, where they have a trade show with the vendors kind of things. And so there's a lot more flexibility. So we might be talking about that. Whereas some people are thinking on trade show kind of stuff. And then further, then we also see the difference of summits that kind of come out with that too. um are you I mean, have you done kind of all of those, or just some of
Yes.
those, or what would you say?
I've done some of all of it.
Okay.
Summits were kind of wrapped around my blogging life, and we did more of like a summit deal, and they were able to transpose those into the COVID area because we could do summits with Zooms.
Right.
And so we were able to keep up with some of that stuff. Whereas if you're going to do a convention and a conference or an expo trade show type deal, it's got to be in person.
Right.
And after looking at all of those, the basic difference that I feel between conference and convention is the amount of people and the size of the location. Now,
Right.
that's just me personally breaking it down and keeping it real, you know, shucking the cob down. That's all. That's how I see those two.
Right.
And I feel after really reading through that, if you wanted to label what I have in my heart, and it may not be what's in yours, and this is really your project that you said, hey, come along and I'll let you I'll let you play with the big boys, is I see Expo, because Expo is a perfect blend of your convention conference with your vendor trade show side. And I think the new era of what America will be is pulling back the curtain off the big boys and allowing small business and USA businesses to be front and center. Now, if we go over to Europe and do one of these, it'll be their local people.
Right.
I just I want to I want to say that I feel that the Lord is really leading us back to the origins of the people being in the power of making their money and not giving it away to the big boys.
Right. So when we talk about that framing point that you're kind of thinking, I'm getting expanded in a bunch of ways. I want us to set up, on overall basis what conferences are, what conventions are, this whole thing. And I'm just saying, I'm using the junk term of
Mhm,
conventions, here, what with
mhm,
that. You might disagree with it, go, oh, it's a conference. And like, okay, what I want a lot of patriots to step back, though, the only conference that they're thinking of from a patriot level is what Clay Clark is doing. And what Clay Clark is doing is more of a rally. Okay. This is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is.
yes.
Okay. Rallies are, when, and Trump is doing them, by the way. So you get a snot load of people out there.
Mhm,
They're in the stage, or they're outside. The person comes up, and there's people speaking, and they're throwing information out, and it's a 20-minute thing, and then you get to the next one, and 20-minute thing, and you get to the next one, and it becomes this perpetual point that is and again, it's just one way of doing it.
mhm,
The problem that both Trina and I have felt with that is that it kind of loses the vendor, because when you have a vendor hall, you have the ability for people to go around and go, this is a problem for me. So the vendor's got a table, a setup, and goes, you know what? I really need to address what you're doing here.
mhm.
So, Joe, would you tell me what's happening and how, you might make a difference in my life? And so that's kind of the expo thing. But good, strong conventions like we're talking about, you mentioned before, is the San Diego Comic Con, which is, by the way, all over the place. But San Diego is one of the places. When they do that, they have multiple hotels, jumping in the middle because one hotel can't do it. And not even the San Diego Convention Center can do it. And so, that's the different kind of point that can be out there. So anyway, just did you have any thought about that or what?
Oh, I agree with what you're saying on the difference of it and people not. I don't know that I've been exposed the last 3 or 4 years on doing the Patriot side of the stuff, where if anybody doesn't know, I have the Hero channel with Dallas and Christine, and prior to that, I was with Angel Warrior Network. So I've been involved in all of this since January 6th of going to Washington, D.C. And Jesus says, I'll protect you. And so we went, and there you go. I don't think anyone has pulled together a truly awesome convention / conference that
Right.
I've been to.
Right.
Because in saying that, there is a manufacturer of makeup that I've been a part of since I was 19, and they do the mother load of a convention. I mean, it's at a convention center, but they also fill a lot of hotels in a downtown area. And then they have certain ones of those hotels that all have breakout rooms for the top leaders to take their people. And you can get, specific training. But during their convention, you might go in from 9 in the morning until noon. And then at noon, you go to breakout classes that have small rooms at that convention center. And you could get specifics on, and I'm going to throw this back to what we had talked about. You could get a specific on homeschooling. You could get a specific on wealth management. You might get a specific on how to have a hydroponic garden. You might get a specific on how to make candles, how to raise bees, how to do common law, how to do trust. We could have breakout rooms on all of this. And whereas people might be paying someone for this knowledge or this knowledge or this knowledge, we're bringing everyone together with one price and it not being near what people are thinking.
Yeah.
To where they get all of this knowledge.
We don't want this to be like
No.
the $500,000, $800,000 kind of thing.
No.
We're intending to, when we do this kind of thing, and Trina's going to be a part of this stuff, is that we intend it to be, I don't know, 1-200 maybe. I don't know, maybe less. I don't know exactly what that is. And and for vendors, we want the vendors to not be shoved in a side hallway like at a church or something like that, where people are trying to go to the bathroom and then the vendors don't have an ability to communicate, and it's just like this cacophony, and you're like, I want to die, shut up, kind of stuff.
And we've even discussed about not doing an outside event because number one, you never can predict Mother Nature. And number two, the sound is usually very tricky for something like that. And it's either too loud for everybody at the front or not loud enough for the people at the back. And then it costs a fortune for the sound equipment for things like that.
Right.
So
whereas in the convention halls indoors, I mean, they're already set up with the sound equipment. You're not going to have feedback, coming up front. I mean, there's going to have some basic kind of things. There's boom mics. There's also ability to have like PowerPoints going on behind you, or if the guy just wants to be able to have his stuff or whatever, that might happen. It gives you that opportunity for that person to go, no, I like to do a hands-on kind of thing. Cool.
Yep.
Or I want to do a PowerPoint presentation. I want to do a Q&A. I don't care with that too.
And I think, and this is the one thing I know you and I didn't discuss that keeps being laid on my heart, and I keep going back to. Everything in the last 2 or 3 years has always felt so rushed because it is that rally mentality of let's hurry up, and everybody wants to pile in because you don't have tickets that give you seats, which you may still not have that. There's probably going to be just general admission seating. And but it was always rushed. Get up there, say your part, don't go over any minutes. And we would still adhere to a schedule, but they would try to cram it all in one day or possibly two. I think 2 to 3 days, if you're gonna spend the money and you're gonna take the time to travel, take an extra day off. Let us make this something that is enjoyable.
Right.
Downtime or, unplugged time to where you can mingle and meet the people, where we can have a 2-hour lunch break,
Right.
not 45 minutes, where you can have an evening that we call it quits at 4, and then we go eat and then maybe come back at 7. And let's say someone might know a really great Christian wrestling federation, and we have a wrestling match. You know,
Do I
they
have to wrestle? I
and,
hope I don't have
well,
to.
if you want to, we'll get you one
And the only
immunity.
time I see, I'm a basketball player when I was growing
Oh,
up, and I had wrestlers, and they were always smaller and bigger than me, and I had my head, just like this the whole time, trying to keep myself from being pinned, but every point was going off against me, but I never could make it past that. So no, yeah,
we'll put him in one of the striped jerseys and let him ref it, right? But since we know professionals that do this and love it, they might be persuaded into being a part of this, since I think probably one of them's a really excellent speaker for this whole event too. And he's very excited about the thoughts of this, because it the thing about it, everybody, it's not any of us taking glory over another. We want to bring everybody along into the future. And everybody that's apprehensive about blockchain or crypto or common law, everything's going to change. And we need that education as much as you do. I
right.
do. I need it. And so I want it to where there's no superstars. We may have a keynote speaker or two, but basically it's people that have been in the trenches that have learned, and this is what they've become really great at, that we would have the breakout classes for all of you to go learn from. That's in my heart. I don't know that Dr. Scott feels that way about that side of it, but I do.
All the way, all the
Okay.
way, because by the way, I have been in thousands of conventions. No, maybe not. Hundreds, whatever the number is, but every one of them, what I will do is, and I've been in all the different types. I mean, I've talked on the outdoor kind of ones along with Dallas, first time I ever met him. And I've done, the indoor ones. I've sang, I mean, I'm a singer as well. I've sang on stage on a billion different ways. The thing that I really want to see is not just one type. I'm feeling really strongly like we might have a very, very localized, not to a place, but to fractionalize, let's put it this way, to maybe what can tax accountants do? So it could be a small
Yeah.
convention comparatively, but it could be just in Baltimore or whatever. And we have a convention, and we might have a couple main speakers, like for instance Dallas. Let's say, I'm just making up something, I'm throwing something out there, and let's say Dallas could speak on that. He's not an accountant, but he would be able to talk about some of the QFS, so they
Mhm.
have a clue. And then there would be breakout sessions about what kinds of things that can happen, and there can be software companies that are coming in and going, this is what we intend to help with. There can be books, and so some of these accountants are going, I'm clueless about what I need to do.
Right.
um this could be, you could, some people, and this is not going to be my area, but maybe we have a horticulture kind of thing.
Yeah.
People want to, grow and grow in their less than a half acre place, to they have, 150 acres, right? So what kinds of things can happen? And I'm triggering in you, I don't want you just to listen to this passively. I want you to play along. um I want to see your comments. I want you to go, over, and I want you to, go over to Trina's stuff and Rumble and look into there because she's going to be talking about this. I guarantee she'll be talking about this. I want you to even go to drscottyoung.com, and I just put on the site. I'm going to show you this in a second. But I put on the site something I had never really thought about doing until I found it with John Wells. I was on his radio broadcast, and what we're doing in there is he put on there, it's just a real interesting circumstance. I got to find it here, but because they put it on on the site without me exactly knowing where all that stuff is. Guess I'll have to find it here. But basically, if you wanted to be a part of it, you could actually come to us. I'm trying to find it here. Well, I'll find it as we go along here. But on drscottyoung.com, you could actually load up and say if you wanted to be a speaker. Well, guess what? I'm thinking about expanding that a little bit here, and you can talk about some of your capabilities in that too. So just a thought process out there as well. But can you define, as we kind of do this, can you define the Patriot movement and what is needed maybe in some of this? Because of why we're doing this.
It's funny that you asked that exactly the way you are on it, because when I was taking notes on some of the things you sent me for the bullet points, right before I got your email, that last email you sent this afternoon, I was sitting in there and it had gotten really quiet. And I've got this magnificent picture of the Lord on the wall. And I was looking at it and I shut my eyes and I said, Lord, we're not always going to need the word patriot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to be an old term in the near future.
And I said, what do you feel right? Because on our show earlier today, I used the word Christian. And I said, that was such a derogatory comment because it was made by the Romans to make fun of the yes. people that follow Christ. And I've gotten to where I don't really like to tell people I'm a Christian. I tell them I'm a kingdom kid. And I am focused on helping build the kingdom of God. And I love Jesus Christ. Don't get me wrong there. I'm not saying that I'm not a believer. But I've gotten to where I pick my words more carefully because that's something that resonates through the universe and never goes away. And we are speaking that into existence.
Right.
And the word he gave me, I kid you not, I was sitting there with my eyes closed and he said, "You're kingdom conservatives."
Kingdom conservatives. Oh, holy
cow. That is my new, I came up with that and I'm going to put that label on that, is we're kingdom conservatives. And it's going to be everything from our food to our medicine, to
Absolutely.
our taxes, to our money, to where we help others. Everything that we are going to do as the Patriots roll into the future of what God has for us is we're going to be very conservative with all of our thoughts and our finances and our food choices. But we are going to do everything in honor of the kingdom and to build it.
I have been also kind of seeing in this, and when I do my worship time, I've been seeing worship. Yes. I would love to see that at night where people are coming together at a conference and they're worshiping. And I'm going, yes. When you see some of that stuff, and we want to be able to invite some big old nasty names in worship kind of area. One place, We the Kingdom, has a powerful set of songs that they've had that are so close to Patriot songs. I mean, Don't Tread on Me by We the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. It could be the Patriot like introduction kind of thing. And yes. I'm telling you that stuff is coming and you should be excited about that. Absolutely. But I agree. I'm there with you with that too. So go ahead.
No, that's just what he gave me.
So would you have have you thought about the focus and purpose of the conference, or how diverse are you in that way?
I think the focus is what's the 1,000-year millennial reign supposed to look like? That's my focus. because I am going into this with the heart and the mind of what Christ would want us to look like in that 1,000-year millennial reign.
Right. I would say it's slightly different, but basically, you're the bride of Christ. We need to equip the bride of Christ. That's Matthew 20, 28:19. Um, Go and teach, disciple, right? We're saying the same thing in just slightly different
Mhm.
ways, that too. And the reality is, so many people have been the child of God, and I'm going, guys, you need to be the bride. That means grow up, and you have to grow up in Christ and know who you are in that, so that you can be that. I think that's more important than anything that we can do, because God has a purpose on each person. And I think this conference thing, I wouldn't care if someone else was doing a conference. I wouldn't care at all. I hope there are so many more people that are doing conferences.
Yeah.
Maybe they're using some of the vehicle I'm going to start creating, and but I don't care. If you go, hey, I want to do this kind of thing. Well, we might have some of the vehicle points, but you can change the wheels up to be 18-inch wheels. I don't care. Go for it. Because that's the thing. Because there's so much educational need that happens out there, and once we are looking a little bit backward, but we're going to be looking forward, and your purpose comes from your maker.
100%.
Yeah. So, like, one of my big things too, and you said this just a little bit ago, but
Mhm.
holy cow, we need social. I mean, if you don't have social interaction in there with your peers, it's not that fun. I mean, just to get talked to, at the different spots, right? Whether it's the vendor hall, or it's the major, speaker, or the breakout rooms, the relationships that you can create in those kinds of things
Mhm.
are the most desirable in my professional field. The best conferences I ever were at, I got some dude on the side, and I started picking his brain on something, and whatever that was, it was like, tell me what you do here, and he'd
We
tell me like the three things, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
we call those the meeting after the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that was the thing, is we would go to some of these conferences and you would have sat there for 3 hours. You get numb and you get antsy. Well, you get up and go to the bathroom, you go get a cup of coffee, you come back for another hour, and then it's like you go out in the hallway and you're just like, there's 2 or 3 out there, and okay, they're on to something. And you go over there and kind of eavesdrop or work your way in or introduce yourself to them, however you feel comfortable doing it. And sometimes the biggest nuggets that caused me the next breakthrough in my businesses
Yep.
was from that conversation, not the hours of sitting there listening to people on a stage talk to you.
Right.
And I do believe that that's why, if you set up an event like this to where you have time, that you give them freedom to go to the vendor or expo area, they know that they can buy what they need for a hydroponic garden.
Right.
Or we have a software manufacturer that comes in that has this new software that works great with the blockchain and makes this app that's amazing, that because you're at the convention, you get it for, $4.99.
Right.
$4.99. I'm not talking
Yeah,
400.
no, not talking for, yeah, we're talking like a lot cheaper. Yeah,
Yes, and I'm just throwing stuff out there. So,
sure.
my booth, if I have one at the vendor, I may have my candles set up at it. And as of right now, yes, they're petroleum based, but they burn better and smell better. And I know that all that's probably not good for you, but people love them. And I have looked into trying to go into like apricot oil based candles, and that may change when I have some really good funds to change all that. But, there's a lot of us that will have books for sale.
Yep.
There's just, you know, and people will work their vendor booth and have time to do that. And we will drift in and out of our booths. Like Dr. Scott will be sitting there signing books at a certain time, and he'll say, hey, I'm going to be in the booth signing books from, 2:30 till 4:30 or
Right.
whatever. We want this to be something that if you've ever wanted, okay, let's say you live in an apartment in downtown Chicago, New York, wherever, Dallas, Little Rock, and you want a container garden. What's the cheapest and best container garden that you could possibly, put together? There may be an heirloom seed company that sponsors part of our convention that comes every time and brings the best combination that you could get 20 of these packets of these certain seeds that would give you your pepper, your tomato, your onion, your basic, and then they sell you a bag of the best dirt to actually make that stuff grow instead of the stuff you go buy at a big bulk store that doesn't work as well. We want this to be something that is wholesome and duplicatable for the people that come, that you can put this into use in your everyday life.
Right.
We want this to help change the world. So that's me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think well, I want you guys to be thinking about, we could answer this, and she was answering as we were talking about it, but frankly, you need to be thinking about this too. I found my part on the website, and I'm gonna put it down here. I actually have this thing that's called appear on the show, so you can look at that kind of thing. Um, we're gonna expand that a little bit more, but if you have some things that you want to do, I'm going to put it down. I mean, we're going to be building this kind of thing out, and you can kind of add this thing in. It's from John C. Wells on his radio show that I did just on Tuesday night. It was fascinating how he did it, and he had all the ability in there. This is also if you wanted to kind of be on my, YouTube site as well. But I'd love to expand that a little bit and kind of have that database of people in that kind of way with that too. Now
And
we
I'll let him keep up with it because he's a lot more organized than me.
Yeah, I know, I keep up with that kind of stuff too. Now, I know we sort of talked about this, the breakout learning structure versus large group, and I call it the ADHD type, conference kind of
Mhm.
things, which is more of the rally kind of thing. Um, why why is the breakout learning structure helpful?
I think a good conference is a blend. That's my personal opinion.
Good.
I
Yeah,
believe 1 or 2 great keynote speakers, or maybe 5 that have 20-minute slots, throughout the 2 or 3 days from the main stage. That's great, but I love, now this is something that wasn't on anything. I love doing an hour panel section.
yep,
I mean, where we have structured questions, and let's say it's all a panel that is on finance.
right,
You've got a crypto person, you've got a blockchain person, you've got a QFS, which all that kind of blends, I know, but you have certain ones that they know better than others on certain parts of it.
right,
Your wealth manager, you have 7 people up there. And no matter what question that the audience could put out there or that we construct, and what we may do is open it up to the audience. Everybody that buys a ticket, they get an email and they get to fill out a questionnaire. If you could
right,
request a question, and I think that's how we center this to help all of you.
right,
We need to know how you think. We need to know what questions you would want. And then, you could do a panel for 30 minutes. And then in the afternoon, you could do another panel that's all on medicinal stuff, herbal and natural medicinal stuff.
right,
And so, we can design it any way that we like. And just by getting people to fill it out, you might put a questionnaire on your deal on the website that you've got them doing, Scott, and just say, which of these areas, what are the top 3 that you feel that you need the most education on in the future where we're headed? So,
I think that would be a thing as well too. Now, I will tell you one of my passions in this, because I've been on all sides of this, is the
mhm,
vendor hall with this.
mhm,
Again, most times when you go to a lot of types of conferences, the vendors are treated like the second class
mm,
citizens.
I know.
And that is a really ugly circumstance, because those are actually the people that support the whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, they're the ones that are bringing in the finances. They're going to pay, of course, but they're not going to pay. I don't want to have them pay these ugly rates, that
No.
have happened in the past. But they're still going to be they're paying more than anyone
Yeah.
else is. Okay, because they're actually taking space. And I mean, depends on how big of a size of a booth they want to do, and how much they want to accomplish. um, Realize that some of these massive booths that you see with the big old things, those can be $100,000 to $500,000 conference setups, with
Yeah.
video and all kinds of other things with that too. But I think one of the things that we want to do is be real friendly to them, and be very helpful for them to be able to communicate their wares. And maybe they don't want to be in teaching a class, but they really like to have that interaction, and I
Yeah.
want to have that
Absolutely.
available for that. I mean, do you have any
Absolutely.
more thought on there?
I feel that 100% because I've been a vendor with having, I had a rhinestone business where I did rhinestone t-shirts, and I did a huge red hat convention down in New Orleans. And then I've had my candle company since '07, and I've done all types. I've done being stuck in the back of the hall and you just
Yep.
sell candles at a table.
Yep.
And I've been in big vendor, areas like at the convocation centers, to where I was at a whole weekend, arts and crafts show. Booth fees can range $50 to $500. And I'm talking like that's not for just a huge show either. But your difference is, and where I think we find a middle of the road, is if we have this in a ballroom type setting, if we start out in hotels and then we get bigger, some of those places have the draped curtains from the company here that does everything's called Sunbelt. And that stuff exists in those halls, and you just have to pay rental to have that.
Right.
I would love to see it that we get a little bit of that stuff taken care of, because just having that draping in between different booths can give you boundaries to where
Yep.
some people get a little bit sideways if your stuff's 2 inches over in their space, or they decide they want to walk through yours to get to theirs because they built all the way to the edge of theirs.
Right.
And that's not to be rude to anyone. It's to keep it safe for everyone and to keep a level playing field where we're not got favorites, and none of that stuff. So I think that could be done very professionally.
Yep.
And honestly, there is no one that can take 2 or 3 days, put a product in front of a group. You can't guarantee their sales, but you can guarantee that they're around like-minded people and
Yep.
that it's focused. And in the beginning, maybe we do want to, or maybe you,
No,
not
it's
say
fine.
me,
No.
want to keep it to where, okay, you can you can break that down, and it could be only homespun products. You could break it down and be only one candle company or one heirloom seed company.
Yeah.
Now, to
I would
me,
kind of lean toward that. I mean, I wouldn't want. I mean, no, I don't want to have one, book selling books, but I'd kind of want to have where they were, if it's candle, we'll use an example. If that we got a candle company, I really don't want to have like competitors of one another. That would probably not be super fun for them, feeling that like they're in competition in that way. So I'd be like really, because I don't think, adding super competition. Well, she's selling it for $4 and you're selling it for $3. I'm like, that's not super fun to have.
that can be an issue, but I also know, because of candles and competition, that a supreme product can outsell a lower price
Oh,
product.
sure. Sure.
And honestly, I learned nobody made candles like me. Everybody has their own blend,
Right.
their own specific, some of them only use beeswax, some of them only use soy, some of them use wood wick. And so, you know, we might want to keep it down to 5 on some of those, but I don't want to, since it is America and there are so many businesses that have been damaged the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
Our
that's a good
heart
point
has
too.
went out to these people,
Yeah,
and they're trying to start over, they're trying to start up, and, you know, I I just think that everybody has the right to shop everywhere,
that's a good point.
and, Walmart has Walmart brand, then they have maybe I know they don't have Tyler candles, and they don't have Trina candles, but I'm just saying, you get the chance to shop variety off the same shelf.
Right.
So, I think you could have a limit,
Yeah.
but I think also that goes back to if you apply ahead of time, you're guaranteed your space, and, that's what people have to be mindful of if they wanted to be a vendor at something like this.
Right. And I think a big thing I would always look at too, and if you've never done that, it does take an initial investment for yourself. Forget about what the vendor fee is. An
Mhm,
initial investment of really putting together maybe tablecloths and
mhm.
um, figuring out what your brand is, figuring out your pitch, figuring out your questions. How do you have a credit card transactions or what
Yep,
or how much if you're not going to take cash, you're going to take cash, you're going to do what? Well, how are you going to do all that stuff? You really need to investigate that. You can't just
yep,
jump at it right there. And so that becomes an issue that you have to really think through you individually. So I guess what I'm doing is we're planting in that, and I'm going to
mhm.
plant in this one. Um, like who do we want to have in that kind of thing?
Can I throw one thing in there which you made a
Please.
statement? Number 1, we don't know exactly what the cash and the credit card situation will be down the road.
Right.
But as of if we decided to dive in and do one of these just to see kind of a mock up, let's see how this will go trial deal. And right now that's still on the table. Please be mindful that you think, oh, well, I'll set up Square and I'll do this and I'll do that. Be very mindful that when you get to these big convention centers, a lot of times their internet cannot be
It's
connected
rock.
to for
Yeah,
everybody because there's
exactly.
so many people, it overwhelms it.
Yeah.
Used to, and I know it wasn't the right thing to do, and it sure isn't now, but way back, I did handwritten credit card things and I didn't charge them until I got home, and I got stuck on some of that wouldn't go through.
Yeah. Happened.
So I'm just putting it out there that if you have a small business and you think, man, if I could get a booth for 150, $200, something like that, that'd be a great 3-day that I've got a quarantined audience to come look at my stuff. Think all that through because like
Yeah.
Cash App and
Right.
Zelle may be your best friend for something like that.
Right. And there might be different ways you can think about it, but you really
Mhm,
need to be praying about this. This isn't like you're not going to
mhm,
be able to do that tomorrow. And some
mm,
people, there's a company called Texas beef jerky, I think it is, and I'm missing that name exactly. But they actually came to the Wanamaker Gun Show, and what they did is they had their bags out, right? Their air sealed bags, but
mhm,
they actually had the beef jerky out for different things, right? The turkey
mhm,
jerky and all these different things.
mhm.
This woman's really nice, and she's got little lights on it, and so she'd cut off a piece and you'd eat it, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then you got to sample that kind of thing
Mhm.
or and frankly sometimes you look at a book and you're like, oh well, that's not exactly what I want, that's fine. And then you look at that one and you're like, holy cow, yeah baby, that's the thing I'm looking at. Those are some of the things that will actually come here with it too.
Right.
As we transition lastly to this part, um think about the people that you want at conferences. Now, we're not always going to agree with you. We're not always going to, go along with that. But think about people that are out there. And I mentioned, someone to worship. I mean, I would love it if we could see "We the Kingdom," because of what some of the stuff that they have been singing that is so patriot level.
Mhm.
It's just something that Scott's thinking on, with. Um, but I would love to see what, everyone else is thinking about with that too. Do you have any thoughts in there that, any type of people or any person, or you wanna say a name. You don't have to, whatever you feel like on that.
Well, my previous pastor, he lived in Hendersonville, right above Nashville. He is a music producer, and he's produced several albums for several gospel groups, and I actually have a few connections. Not it's me. I mean, y'all, I know a lot of people on this show has never heard me speak. I'm pretty country, but my pastors have taught me that I've been under the last 10 years, and they are great men of God. If you don't have a really good one, you find one. But our current pastor, one of his favorite sayings is favor ain't fair. I have been shown favor where my finances have barely hung on by a thread the last 4 years.
Right.
The favor and the glory of God has just been amazing in my life. And the right people on the right path. I never knew when I changed churches. Well, it's been almost 12 years ago now, that he would put me in touch with, the evangelist that actually birthed our church. He's been to Israel over 50 times, and I've been blessed to be on 2 of those trips with him. He actually was out having lunch and running around Israel and made a statement about the red heifers, and someone overheard him and was kind of stalking him because he had heard of him in Israel before and was listening, and he said, "Would you like to meet him?" He goes, "Well, yeah." He was one of the only probably American evangelists that have met the red heifers that are over there waiting to be sacrificed.
Right.
So, and he was actually supposed to go see them like October the 8th or 9th. They were working the date out when October the 7th happened. So that trip back to see them did not happen. But I'm just saying, on praise and worship and things like that, God's given me favor, and some of them are very popular in the gospel realm, but they're probably not everybody that you're hearing winning the Dove Awards
Right.
necessarily.
Right. And
So,
and we probably, remember too, guys. I will say this: when you pull out a name of it, whether it's a vendor, worship, or speaker kind of thing, you're going to hear a name and you go, "I hate him," and you're like, "I'm not going because of him," and I'm like, you
don't
might
you?
be missing out on what God's telling you. Hey, man,
Yes,
I'm not asking you to see that one guy.
right,
This isn't about a guy or a person. And frankly, I'm going to put it in a much more broad sense. This nation isn't just about Trump. Now, I love Trump,
no,
no question. This nation
right,
isn't just about Trump, but it is about the patriots that are in here. Okay. And that's what's rising up. That's what you're feeling in there, kind of thing, too.
yes,
So, I mean, now there are some people who we would know what grifters mean. Grifters are people who only are in this thing for the money, and that is it. And you can tell that pretty quickly. We won't have grifters, and we won't have a few of the other ones that we know are disinformation, misinformation, crazy stuff. Okay. But what we will be, but we might have someone that you might not like
right.
because you heard something. And I'm like, calm it down and realize that there's more to it than the one person that you don't like.
And it may be me.
Yeah, it might be you.
If that's the case, I get it. I have no problem with it. I don't even have to get on the stage if I'm an issue for a lot of people. But if I were, or if someone was up there that maybe I don't see eye to eye, that's a really great time to go over to the vendor area and maybe get to know some of the vendors.
Right.
So don't use one person as an excuse to miss out on a blessing. If you know there are several areas that you've needed the education that's going to be offered at something like this.
Right. And by the way, I mean, professional let's put it this way, Trina and I professionally have gone to, these things as, just we've done it as speaker, we've done it as, vendor, we've done it as, helpers, and we've also done it just going,
Yeah.
the attendees, right?
Yep.
And there are tons of times where you go, man, I want to hear him, and I shoot off, and I might have a meeting with someone, sit with her for like a while, going, holy cow, that was better than that whole thing I could have talked about, or you could have, hit the vendor hall, or something, some way that you did it, because what you're doing is you're wanting to meet God, there. You're wanting to see what this country can be like and where your place might be in here. And there's tons of learning that you can do, but you got to be a little open to going, I'm not liking that one, but I'll do it for this, for all the things that I can get from it. And then you have to pray and see where you're going on that too.
And I think where we've heard the word the Great Awakening or reawaken, I think something we have to maybe keep in mind, and the Lord just gave me this with what you said, is Restoration America.
Right.
It's the restoration of where we want to live and how we want to live it the next ever how many years.
Oh yeah, and that's a great point that you need to say. I'm writing these down. Those are good ones with that too. But I think those are the areas. And by the way, we are the great melting pot. I mean, people are
Mhm.
going to come. I mean, maybe we have something. Let's say we have something in Denver, and it might be like, we have different areas that are coming in, from all over the place. We might do something that's in a smaller town, and what we might do is have lesser speakers, but
Yes.
more time with those, whereas in a bigger one we might have a little bit longer convention time, many more speakers, and we barely can't even kind of name them all with that too. So there's a
Yes.
bunch of different ways that God's kind of leaning on that with it too.
And you saying that, that was something that I noticed in my show this morning. Several people, when I told them that we were going to be doing this and kind of the topic, they were like, we would love to have went to one of the Patriot meetups, but they were all so far away from us.
Right.
And that's something that my heart's desire would be for us to possibly hit every state.
Yep. we're,
And
we're gonna we're
and
gonna
and if it's a little state, like when you get up around New Hampshire and Delaware and some of those, is to get it as close to maybe a center location to
right.
where, everybody could be 3 or 4 hours you drive from it. And the one thing we've talked about is on maybe starting these out would be in areas to where people could get very affordable flights in and out, because gas is high. And I know people don't trust planes, so that's totally optional and up to you.
Right.
But, the hubs, the places where planes, I mean, it's just cheaper. It's
Right.
just cheaper to go to Dallas or to Atlanta or Chicago. It's easier for people to get in and out of. Not
Yeah.
that that's what we're gonna do, and not that I'm speaking on his terms. I'm just saying my heart's desire is to get this to where every single patriot for the last 4 years has wanted to connect or meet people or shake our hands, hug our necks. We want that too.
And we do. I mean, you guys have no idea how sick the COVID thing was.
Yeah.
And I know that's a pun, but the reality is it was sick. It was a sick circumstance, and we need to kill that. The virus killing is getting together. Um
Yeah.
what is it? Hebrews, it says, don't let us stop meeting together, in essence.
Yes.
And that is, and that's talking about, a church issue, but really what it's talking about is connection with it too.
The human
uh
spirit.
exactly, that's what we're there for. And you will find new passions when you go back. And so these could be something that you might do twice a year. This might be, more than that. It's fine, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to see Trina at every one of them. You're not going to see me at every single one of them. You're not going to see, who pick the person at every single one of them. But what you might find is that instead of the flashy, kind of thing that some of these people put out, and I'm not talking about just Patriot ones. I'm talking about on every
All of them.
conference centers. They too much flashiness. I will tell you that some of the best speakers that I ever had were the guy I'd never seen before. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that dude is killing it and he's way better than everyone else, the big namer ones.
Well, I think just from doing so many of these, like you were talking about, those keynote that get the most money and get paid to fly in, and you take care of them and you schmooze them, and they've said the same thing the last 45 conventions they've been at. You can find that speech online and you could have listened to it sitting in your living room.
Right.
And their heart and passion wanes after a while if they're not doing it for the love of it.
It does. And
So,
it can. And that's why what we intend to do is go, hey, listen, let's say Trina's the big name speaker that everyone's like listening to. I'd be like, I don't care, Trina. You want to use your little thing. I'm going to give an example. This is a Cabal one. I was thinking about this just this morning.
I'm
But
not Cabal.
no, it's totally, no, not Cabal. But this was a hearing aid manufacturer, and they brought in Colin Powell. And when you listen to him, I'm like, what the heck does that have to do with anything about like the hearing aid industry, right? Or hearing. And it was like, he was just yammering. And I'm going, even if Colin was great or not, it doesn't really matter. My point is, we'll probably kind of say, you better submit what you're going to talk about, because we're probably going to ask you to kind of go in a direction that will help frame this. So those main speakers are more the framers of this setup. And so they're going to have to put research into what they're doing and not just spit out the same 4 speeches they do. So.
Exactly. And for some of these events that people don't want to use their own resources to get there, because chances are we will use our own resources, especially post-NESARA. Now, I'm not going to say that maybe our rooms aren't comped if we're a part of this, and that, that happening. I'm not going to be dishonest with anyone about things like that, but I'm just going to say, I do not vote for anyone to ever do a video live in or a phone call live in.
It's not happening.
If this Patriot community that decides to be a part of this and buy a ticket for this, unless that person just got really ill and had to do that, you're going to see everybody in person that wants to be a part of this event.
Right. And we wouldn't do any of that kind of stuff.
Mm-mm.
And that's not going to be the case. But we're also going to be really, we're going to flow in, that particular thing. Again, like I said, accountants, right? Or we're going to talk about, horticulture issue. We're going to bring in people that we would want to do that, but we want you to talk to us. Okay.
Yes.
So that's why I kind of put this out there, talk to her. She's probably going to be talking about this quite a bit on her channel. I'm already telling you, I just feel it coming. And again, you can kind of email me on this, info@drscottyoung.com. You can email, but you can also fill out some of the stuff for appearance on the show, or appearance in this kind of thing. And so I love your comments, guys. So take the time and do that. So thanks so much, guys. Do you have any last words you want to say?
If anyone would like to email me on any of this with topics, subjects, ideas, companies, anything like that, feel free to do it. My email is hero, the letter Q, the number 4, and the letter U. Hero Q for you @gmail.com. So, and you can also send me stuff through Redneck Rhapsody. It has a link to get to my emails and stuff like that. I appreciate y'all for listening. I appreciate you all for participating and sending Dr. Scott your information. If you would like to be a vendor or a speaker, or maybe just be a part of the breakout session, maybe you like to do small groups, 20 to 50, we would find the space with the amount of chairs that you would want. And, you can have somebody stand at the room, and when the chairs are full, say, nope, that's it for this go round.
Right.
Just really pray about this and think about it. And if it's been something in the back of your mind, man, I'd like to take my business to a new level, or I have so many in our community that are over the 55 age that are like, how are we going to learn all this stuff?
Right.
Everything's going to change. And, you know,
This is how you do it.
this is how we're going to do it. We're going to help you help yourselves by having people in one place at one time and hopefully not feel overwhelmed. Because, I mean, if we had one breakout room that has someone in there from 9 until 4, except for lunch times,
Yeah.
and it's not the same person, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm just gonna use these names because y'all are probably familiar with them from being on this channel, is, okay, let's say Dr. Scott's there from 9 to 10. Let's say Mark Z's there from 10 to 11. Let's say Zester's there from 11 to 12. Let's say Dallas comes in and talks from 1 to 2. You have people with different parts of their training
Right.
in this money process that you can get, you know, more private one-on-one. Maybe it's a room for 100 people, but it's going to put you to where you can be there and get some of that. So I'm really excited. I'm blessed and I'm honored that you've asked me to be a part of this and asked me to be on the channel, and look forward to meeting all of you at some point in time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it. So like and subscribe, but really more important, now I want you to leave a bunch of comments on that kind of thing, and let's talk about it, and I'll make notes on it. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Bye.